Hi, I'm Paul Kiritis. Nice to be with you today. I became interested in this field a while ago. It's been quite a few years. I was taking a Jung class in university, at La Trobe University. And through Jung, I basically became acquainted with a lot of esoteric topics. And then basically started to run my own website. The website that I run is called Down the Rabbit Hole. There's well, it alludes to obviously Alice in Wonderland, the adventures of Alice in Wonderland, and has to make do with the unseen, the esoteric, the metaphysical, whatever you want to call it. I've looked at mythology, I've looked at comparative religion, I've looked at more esoteric streams of knowledge like astrology and alchemy. What interests me most is the exploration of the nature of human consciousness. So basically I've looked at Jungian alchemy, psychology, neuroscience, and probably to a lesser extent quantum mechanics or quantum physics. I'm also intensely interested these days in a field of humanistic psychology, which basically bridges Eastern spiritual concepts with more Western psychoanalysis. Cool. In relation to the brain-mind debate, I basically wrote a series of 4 articles that all basically took different vantage points, allowing the audience or the reader to judge for themselves which side that they would prefer to take. And all of that's on the actual website. Right now, I'm basically about to start my thesis. I'm studying Western esotericism at Exeter University. My essay topic is quite an interesting one. I'm basically analysing the case of Karen Overhill. Karen Overhill is a woman who suffered rather, from multiple personality disorder. And I'm looking at the psychoanalysis or the psychoanalytic progression of Karen's case. Dr. Richard Bauer is the man who cured her. So I'm analysing the whole therapy from an alchemical perspective. I'll be doing that for the next 6 to 9 months. Out-of-body experience is basically the feeling that we're coming out of our bodies. It's something that feels very real to the person, and it can be quite an intense and frightening experience. We know that about roughly 20% of the population has out-of-body experiences. Some people will report them, other people don't report them, probably because there's definitely a fear factor of speaking openly about them, for one reason or another. Many of these we know occur around a relaxed, or people usually relax when they experience them. It's usually perhaps before going to sleep or when they slouch on the couch. The paranormal in general, or a lot of paranormal experiences tend to happen when you're in a relaxed state of mind. Now, connected to OBEs, of course, is the idea or the notion of a spirit double, or what alchemy calls a subtle body, or what occultists will call a spiritual astral traveling, a spiritual double, an astral body that can leave at will and then return. We know that this idea is an extremely old idea, so it goes back to at least ancient Egypt. The ancient Egyptians thought, of course, beside your physical shell, you also had a ka and a ba. A ba is kind of more your personality, so basically the different thought forms that make up your personality, or the desires. And a ka is your energy, right? So the energy of your body, the animating life force of your body. All these ideas basically came to the West through theosophy, the Christian theosophy. So basically there's that notion that there's something other than us that leaves, a part of our consciousness that leaves. A lot of people that have OBEs, out-of-body experiences, will sometimes feel like they've been to places or seen people, and then come back, and then they'll be able to describe these experiences very accurately. Whether something does actually leave or doesn't, I mean, we study things from a subjective perspective, so we know that we feel that something's leaving, therefore we need to look at it from that perspective. So they are real from that perspective, but whether there's an objective truth to something disembodied actually leaving is up to everyone to decide, because science can't really explain that for the time being. Lucid dreaming in itself is obviously the experience of what I call awakening in your sleep. So basically you go to sleep and then you're in a dream, and then all of a sudden there's some kind of a dream cue. I don't know, the walls might change color, or gravity might not work the way that it usually does. The earth might open and, you know, something might come out of it, or something completely fantastical, which basically alerts you to the fact that you're not in consensus reality, what we call consensus reality. And then you think to yourself, well, I'm dreaming. And the minute you have that thought, then you can kind of alter the terrain of your dream and move your dream wherever you want to. So basically you create your own reality. Often when you realize that you're lucid dreaming, you don't have that much time to play out the scenario. For some reason, we awaken shortly after we realize that we're lucid dreaming. Lucid dreaming is connected to an out-of-body experience in the fact that a lot of people who have them will experiment with coming out of their own body. A lot of times it feels very real. Sometimes you can be, you know, having a lucid dream and say to yourself, well, I'm gonna try leaving my own body. And you do. You actually leave your own body. Sometimes, you know, you can turn around and even look at yourself. I have had one, but it was in terms of a lucid dream. So I had the experience whilst lucid dreaming. The whole thing began, I was lying, you know, I was asleep, I was lying down in bed, and I realized that I was dreaming. So basically, I'm sitting there thinking, okay, well, what can I do? Well, I'm going to come out of my own body. So I gradually, it's kind of funny, I kind of, the way that I did it was I kind of centered all my energy kind of around the abdominal region and kind of pushed myself out, and it worked. So I actually came out of my own body, and then levitated and floated up and up and up, and there I was, about ceiling height, and I thought to myself, well, I'm going to turn around now and have a look at my own body. So I turn around, and I look at myself sleeping, you know, outstretched. I usually sleep in a very outstretched position, and think, okay, wow, this is amazing. And then I'm thinking, I wonder what's actually come out of me. So I'm, you know, my eyes, I trace my vision all the way. I can see a mirror, because there's usually a mirror close to where I sit. So I'm looking at the mirror and I'm thinking, well, should I, you know, look at myself, because I've obviously split from my own body, and I'm thinking, well, what am I going to see? So I gradually, you know, look at the mirror, then kind of start looking a bit higher and higher and higher, and then I all of a sudden see myself in the mirror, and there I am, and floating, and I've got wings, and I've got dragonfly wings, and it seems very odd, and I'm very white. So a bit like a bit of a ghost. So I sit there thinking, okay, so what can I do now? Because you need to think quickly when you're having a lucid dream, because you don't know when you're going to wake up. And I roll around, I, you know, walk on the walls, I crawl along the walls, I experience upside downness, which is an interesting, fascinating experience in itself. And, you know, I'm thinking, well, this is what it must be really like to climb on the walls and be upside down. Then I say, okay, so what else can I do? And I immediately bring to mind an entity called Solum, who's been visiting me in my dreams. And I'm thinking, well, I'm going to visit Solum, this spirit that's been coming to me in my dreams. And all of a sudden, I will myself to see Solum. And the fact of willing something or imagining it whilst having lucid dreams creates that reality. And all of a sudden, I'm, you know, propelled into the air, up into the sky, you know, rising tier above tier. And, you know, it feels like I've kind of exploded out of the earth. And all of a sudden before me, there's, you know, these snow-capped peaks, there's trees everywhere. It looks a bit like an Egyptian paradise, so to speak. There's palm trees, there's cypress trees, and all sorts of trees. And hanging on these trees are all sorts of fruits. And I look at the fruits, and they're all sorts of different colors. And then the fact that I look at them, and then all of a sudden I can actually taste them as well. So all my senses are actually connected with one another. And that I find very interesting, because it leads me to believe that, in a way, everything is completely interconnected in the universe. Then I just have a bit of a look around, and everything's silent, and then all of a sudden I hear this fluttering coming from one of the cypress trees, and it's just this big butterfly. The butterfly starts flying, then circles, and then lands right beside me. And then the butterfly turns into Solem, who's the spirit that's been visiting me, and she's, kind of says, "How did you get here?" And I'm like, "Well, I thought I'd visit you as well, seeing as you always come to see me." And she said, "Well, what we're doing isn't allowed, so you're going to have to hurry up." And I say, "Okay, well, there's, one thing that I want to know." And she says, "What?" And I said, "Well, what's the reason for all of this? What's the reason for being? What's the reason behind evolution? Is there something hiding behind what we see? Or some conscious force, conscious and creative force hiding behind what we see?" And she says, "Look, I'll put it to you this way. Think, everything's created from mental images, and think maternal impressions." And I'm thinking, well, what's a maternal impression? And she says, well, a mother in the first trimester of her pregnancy might see something that basically affects her emotionally on a deep level. And for a pregnant woman, the emotion or the fear of seeing this thing or this terrible image will actually imprint it onto herself, and then she'll give birth to an infant with exactly the same disability or abnormality. I'm like, well, okay, so then, by analogy, you're telling me that there is some kind of a conscious force behind everything. And then she says, well, I, basically can't tell you anymore. Anyway, at that stage, I, become aware of something that's happening beneath me. I look down and I see this big globe, and I'm like, well, that's the Earth. I must be above the Earth. And I can see the grid on the Earth, or basically the imaginary lines, the longitudinal and latitudinal lines which make up the Earth. And there's a veiny hand, and there's a torch. It looks like a male's hand. And the hand is thrusting the torch inside the little rectangles and lighting them up. And in a sense, intuitively, I feel that they're looking for me. Now, I don't know who these people are, who they is, but they're looking for me, and that I really need to get back to my body, or something's going to happen, and I won't be able to get back. So what I do is I leave Solem, and I just let myself drop, all the way back into my body. As soon as I reunite with my body, I see that my limbs are operational, I'm feeling good, and then I just let myself wake up. I think at the moment we're seeing a lot of, obviously, for example, Hollywood, the things that it projects through movies, television. You've got the plastic looks, everyone has to look a certain way, and I think that takes away from what we should be doing, which is basically, for example, looking after the environment, looking after the sick, helping people find, people that don't have homes, helping people find homes. They're the important things. One of the most striking things that I read that is connected to moving society forward is there's a doctor by the name of Rick Strassman, and he conducted some studies into mystical states of consciousness. And he basically got participants and he injected them intravenously with DMT. And a lot of them experienced out-of-body experiences, as you do with drugs. And one of them that really, really struck me was there was this gentleman that reported being led by a bee-like entity to a hive. And inside this massive hive, there were other bee-like entities working. And the man said that, he goes, I was very impressed by the loving environment, by the, the sense of community, togetherness. These entities were all working together for the sake of a greater cause. So a very communal attitude. And he goes, I was very struck by that. And then the bee entity turned around and said to him, well, this is where your future lies. Now, we're not sure whether that was something that was produced by his subconscious, or it was a subconscious thought that came through during that experience, or whether it was something more external. But I feel that that's where we should be going. We should be looking at, helping one another, helping the community, love, sharing, mutual respect, spiritual bonds. I think that's all important. I think whatever we choose to do, it needs to be a balance between having a completely free society which promotes anarchy, and on the other side, you know, basically having a repressed or a repressive dictatorship. I don't think either. You know, we need to stay somewhere in the middle. I think that's what's important. Anything polarized or too extreme, or anything practiced too extreme, isn't a good thing.